Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of First Impression Sports Talk. I'm Jasmine Pollock, your host, and I want to give a special shout out to Fluent Media for hosting my show, for being a destination for my show, in order to give you guys great sports content and sports talk. So today we're going to get into the LSU women's basketball because there's a lot I want to get into, especially what Coach Lisa Mookie had to say, and what she had to talk about regarding the Washington Post and just who they're going to be playing in the tournament this Saturday and who they just beat in the tournament. So let's get into the tournament talk. So they beat Middle Tennessee this past Sunday, 83-56, which would be star center Angel Reese's last home game, potential last home game as an LSU Tiger. And this game was big because LSU was down in the first half of this game, and people were kind of worried because we're looking at an upset because Middle Tennessee was the 11th seed in the big dance in the bracket, and then LSU being number 3, they're 31-5. So that was a big deal, but they were able to get back into this game. Angel Reese had a great game, and she was balling. And let's look at some of the stats for LSU. So Angel Reese, she had 20 points in a row. Anissa had 19 points. Flau'jae Johnson, who's another star player for the LSU Tigers, 21 points. Michaela Williams had 16. Haley Van Lith, she was actually benched the start of the first half because she wasn't playing well. And that tends to happen in big games like this where, players, they might not be in their best, the right headspace. They might not be where they need to be far as, playing in this big moment. So I get it. And they end up getting out. So this weekend, they do get to play on Saturday. They play number 2 UCLA, which is going to be another big game because both these teams, LSU again is number 3, UCLA is number 2, and they get to play at UCLA. So this is going to be a big, big deal. This is going to be the Sweet 16, so this is going to be a big deal for LSU, and they're the defending champs. Obviously, they won the championship last year. Angel Reese and Flau'jae, a lot of those girls, they're the ones that they have the target on their back. They're the ones that have to be beat. They have the experience. They know what it's like to win this environment. They've been here before. They've been there and done that. But we're going to see. I do have LSU. But overall, my prediction for the women's tournament, South Carolina looks very tough. I mean, they look scary. They haven't lost a game since last tournament against star player Caitlin Clark in Iowa. And that was a big deal, too, because they Caitlin Clark was who she was, and then of course you have South Carolina, who happened to win so many games, and they've been a great regular season team. But I think this year, with a lot of the talent that they have, and just what they're bringing to the table, and them being undefeated, them being the number 1 seed, they're going to be a tough team, and I have them winning it all. I think LSU is still the team to beat because they won last season. And then, of course, people mentioned Iowa. When I look at Iowa, outside of star goated Caitlin Clark, who do they have outside of this team that can compete with the other schools that can go if they do play an LSU again, or if they do play a South Carolina, or even USC with Juju? There's a lot of things that I feel that Iowa has to answer. I don't know if you can continue to ride the back of Caitlin Clark and continue to, depend on her to have these crazy amount of numbers, even though that's what she's going to do. But you might have another player on the other side. You might have 2 players on the side that's giving you that same amount of points. And that third option, like I just read you for LSU, there's a lot of star players that they have that can give you 21, that can give you 20 points, a good 19 points, a good 15. When we look at Iowa, Caitlin Clark is their breadwinner. She is the star of that team. They just won last yesterday with a big win, or the day before, because she had a great game, and I'm really excited for her. And she is one of the greatest basketball players in college history. I mean, if not the greatest. We've never seen anything like Caitlin Clark, and I've said this many times before, where a lot of these young players that we're seeing in women's college basketball. You're talking about an Angel Reese. You're talking about a Juju. You're talking about a Flau'jae Johnson. You're talking about a Caitlin Clark. A lot of these young women, even South Carolina's players as well, they're changing the landscape of how women's sports in general is going to look and how women's basketball is going to look. When they get to the WNBA, it's going to put the WNBA in a different stratosphere than it's ever been because of just how big of these stars these girls are. And I feel like as of late, these past 2 years, there's been a shift in wanting to see the women play more than the men. And I still love the men. We're going to talk about the men in another date, but it just feels like there's a shift because the girls are really out there balling. They're really balling. They're doing their thing. And shout out to them for putting women's sports on the map because I was a female athlete. I played softball. I played flag football in college and also a little bit of basketball in my early years of childhood. So when we look at it, women's sports is on the rise. It's been on the rise for the past 5 years now. I believe that, and it's going to continue to transcend. It's going to continue to improve and become more of have a bigger exposure. And shout out to guys like Steph Curry, who's competing with the women in a 3-point shooting battle and different things like that. That's going to be a big deal because you have star athletes in the NBA, in the NFL, supporting these women and really giving them the crowns that they deserve and giving, young women that are coming, young athletes that are coming, not just women athletes, but male athletes as well, that, hey, I can do that. I can be the best I can be. And then just regarding Caitlin Clark breaking the record, like a lot of people are going to want to chase that now. Like a lot of people are going to, now that's a big deal that a woman just did that. There's going to be a lot of people that want to chase that and get that record. She broke a record on Sunday as well. But women's basketball is on the rise, and I'm super excited for what women's basketball is going to look like in the near future. Let's get into Coach Lisa Moakley. Now, we saw what she was talking about regarding, or Kim Moakley, I keep calling her Lisa, excuse me, Kim Moakley. We're going to continue to talk about this, being that I'm a sports journalist, being that, I went to school for journalism, sports journalism specifically. And she had some interesting points to make before they played Middle Tennessee. It was a couple of days ago during the press conference. She was talking about the Washington Post, which is a very premier journalism blog, journalism newspaper, different things like that. Very premier thing that a lot of people know. Very, very, very big medium in media in general. And she was just, I'm not going to get into too much of the details, but just overall, she was talking about a reporter that's been wanting to get a bad story about her and getting a lot of former players that used to play under her to write, to say bad things or have bad stories about her and run this thing while they're in the middle of this big tournament, while their goal is to get the repeat and finish on a strong note this season. So she's upset about this because she feels like this is getting away from true journalism. This is getting away from what journalism is supposed to mean. And in general, not just in sports, but just in general, but we're going to talk about sports. I agree with Kim 100%. I agree with Coach 100%. What has journalism in sports looked like these past few years? There was a time where, gentlemen, you just reported on the news. You just reported. You just report out whatever's happening, regardless of what your opinion is, regardless of how you were feeling. And there was a point in time where it wasn't about just getting a story out, whether it's wrong or right. It was just getting it right and being accurate and making sure to get the information out to the public. Now we've noticed there's been a shift in media, not just in sports, but in politics and a lot of different things like that, where people don't care about the facts now, especially these journalists are not caring about the facts. They just want to be the first to get the story out, and however they get it out, whatever they get it out. And that is a major problem because that is spreading misinformation that's not there. And then when people find out later that, oh, I'm thinking this whole time that this was happening, that's not what's happening. And usually in Coach Mulkey's example, this reporter wanted to sit down with her and she declined because of how he did Chip Kelly, who was a coach for LSU's football. Everyone should know who Chip Kelly is. Very big coach that we know. He's a big name in football, college and NFL. He used to coach for the Eagles a long time ago, coach UCLA, LSU, different things like that. So he's been around in different organizations. But whatever that reporter did left a bad taste in her mouth regarding Chip Kelly, and she didn't want. I'm not giving you that benefit. I'm not giving you that benefit. I'm not sitting down with you. And all of a sudden now you're starting to see this certain reporter starting to, okay, let out of whatever it is, anger or irritation, or can you believe she said no to me? Now I'm going to go out and go after her. And I think that's a big problem, because if you're a reporter, strictly a reporter, your job is to report. Your job is to get the facts. Your job is to get the notes that you can, create a body of work, whether that's through media or a video media, or, writing or different things like that, radio. Your job is to make sure the facts are correct and getting the information out, regardless of how you're feeling at that moment. And it's showing that in journalism, people now, this is what's in a way it's ruining journalism, because you're getting your feelings caught up in, oh, that person doesn't want to sit down with me. Oh, I have an issue. I'm going to write a bad story. That's not okay. You have to, there has to be a point where you have to be okay or comfortable with being told no, especially in sports. I mean, you have Coach Kim. They're preparing for a big tournament. We're in March Madness. This is for the women and the men. And this goes for anything. These coaches are super busy. I've interviewed so many coaches at the collegiate level where there's so much going on at one point. They're dealing with so much. And you're just lucky to get their time as a reporter, as an interviewer, as a journalist. It's you should be thankful. Like, hey, I want to make sure I get this right. I want to make sure that I can report on the news, ask the right questions, and give that particular school, that particular team, athlete, coach, whatever, the best time that they deserve, and giving them a much needed effort. But now it's become, oh, you don't want to sit down with me. We're going to have this push, this smear campaign to make you look a particular way. And I have a major issue with that, especially as me aspiring and me being a young journalist in this field. You have so many people who are working hard, who want to do the right thing, who want to just talk about the news and talk about particular things. And there's different conglomerates within journalism, especially in sports. You have the Stephen A's and Shannon Sharps of the world who commentate, who are analysts, who are asked the questions and they give their opinion about a certain sports topic. You have reporters that are specifically in the MLB, in hockey, in football, in basketball, in college, that specifically, okay, whatever's the hot story out, we need to look at the facts, display it to the people, like, oh, this is what's going on. That's what brings sports together. That's what we get hyped about, because we get so caught up in, whoa, this big story is dropping, that keeps the people in tune. And then you have the sideline reporters who do a phenomenal job. But for this reporter, you can't be entitled this way. No matter how many years you've been doing it, you just can't be entitled. You have to think outside the box here and move on, and even say, hey, listen, whatever I've done in the past, apologize, or whatever that may have offended someone. Because, and it also goes to how you treat someone else, and other people are watching, and that could be, and especially somebody like Chip Kelly, who has so many connections, so many people know him. And if you had a riff, that's going to be a stain on you, and people are going to remember that. And people are going to be like, oh, I remember how you treated him or treated her. Remember that. Now, you can always bounce back from that. You can earn your way back. And I believe that anybody deserves a chance to redeem themselves, to be better, 100%. But if you're still doing those same things over and over, then your credibility is somewhat lost. And I feel like that's what happened with this reporter regarding Kim Mulkey. And she even went on to say that she's going to sue the Washington Post if there is a story coming out about her that isn't true. So she's already prepared to sue the Washington Post. And that's a big deal, because you have these big outlets like that who are starting to lose their credibility, because there's certain people within the organization taking things into their own hands and doing what they want to do, and they feel that they can do what they want to do. Now, I get that there's some posts, some journalism outlets that push particular things, that tell their journalists what to do and how to do it. But I feel like in this situation, you have to be smarter than that, and always think, how would this look, and how would this reflect on me, and how would this reflect on everyone else? Maybe you're just saying, hey, I have all the money in the world. I've done all I could do. Maybe it's time I can feel like I can just do this. And it's not okay. It's not okay. And I feel like we have to do better as journalists. We have to really report on the news and give these athletes and coaches leeway. Give these, and everyone's not perfect. Everyone's not going to do everything correct. Everyone's not going to be the best person at the right time. But we still need to show people, give people respect they deserve, because it's not just whatever story this journalist is trying to write is not just going to um reflect on coach. It's going to reflect on the organization. It's going to affect LSU. It's going to affect the girls that are battling day in and day out, the athletes that are going to war for her day in and day out. So, and then for you to go get some of her former players and trying to, get something out of that. That's just that shows that's malicious to me. That shows you're looking for a story that you shouldn't be looking for. You should be looking at things elsewhere. If Kim, and I'm one of those people, if someone says no to me, okay, thank you for your time. I wish you the best. Hopefully we can meet down in the future. Boom, send an email like that. And then on to the next. Get creative, and okay, what's the next thing I can do? So that's my opinion about that. And I feel like what we're doing right now as journalists is we're getting our feelings caught up too much in the sports as fans. And I had to learn that myself, because as passionate of a sports fan as I am, when I'm talking, I have to be very cautious. I have to be very mindful of how I say it, because these are still human beings. You still have to regard them as human beings and understand that these people have day-to-day lives. Now, we'll react to certain things that they do or say, or how they play on the field or the court or what have you. I get that, but it's important to acknowledge others as human beings, regardless of where they are and what your status is. 100%, whether you're a coach looking at a journalist, or whether you're a journalist looking at a player or coach or a general manager, different things like that. We should have regard so that we can keep sports running. There's a lot of great stories happening in sports, and we're talking about this, and we're suing a Washington Post who's been around for years, for decades, that's been a premier journalism form of media to get your news from. So it's a big deal, but hopefully we all can just, conjoin and be a little better. Hopefully no stories come out. If it's a story if it's something that's being covered up, that's a little different. But I feel like we need to be respectful of others and understand the dynamic of what's going on, and understand that where these players and coaches are at mentally and what they're trying to focus on, rather than this. But that wraps up the show today. Please, everyone, give me your thoughts on that and what you think about sports journalism today. Is it changing for the better, changing for the worse, or is it staying the same? Do you feel like there's nothing wrong with it? You just choose who you listen to. I do that too. But what are your thoughts? Also, any super checks you have will be grateful. And I think that, that would be very much appreciated. Again, my name is Jasmine Pollock, and this is First Impression Sports Talk. You can catch me on my YouTube channel, which is First Impression Sports Talk. I have weekly content. I'm going to be having a show tomorrow. We're going to be talking about, me and my co-host are going to be talking about gambling in sports. We've seen a lot of stories this past week of a lot of scandals. Bruno Mars, he had his, he owes money to the casino. We got Atani. We have so many different, people who are getting caught up in this gambling thing, is even sports betting. What are your thoughts about that? And that's a big deal. That's been an industry that's on the rise here late these past few years. So I'm going to be talking about that tomorrow. And then, of course, some more basketball talk. But that wraps up today's show. See you guys next time for more.